Hello again from Levi's, where the 49ers and the Chargers are going to kick off in a little bit, but we need some more sane, big picture Trey Lance analysis. I know emotions are running hot right now after the 49ers traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys. Of all teams, the Cowboys. I get it. Some people are old enough to remember the Charles Haley debacle on the 49ers end, but you have to view this 49ers trade as a separate entity from their trade up in the draft to pick Trey Lance. It is absolute sunk cost fallacy to compare the draft cost in 2021, which was extraordinary, with what the 49ers just sold Trey Lance for, which was a 4th round pick. So you have to view these as separate entities. We already knew that the 49ers had not moved on from Trey Lance, but we had known that they had done everything but that, right? That was the story of the past couple days. Demoted to quarterback 3 less than a year after he was QB1. Obviously, this team was moving in a different direction, but they weren't going to part with Trey Lance for free. They were going to have to find a good price, and it turns out the Dallas Cowboys were willing to offer that price. I think Cam Inman reported that they beat the Bills offer, but based on everything that I had gathered over the past couple days, the 49ers were not expecting a mid-round pick in return for Trey Lance. Because the Cowboys not only sent them this 4th round pick, they're also picking up all of Trey Lance's fully guaranteed contract, or what remains of it. That's over $6 million in cap relief for the 49ers over the next 2 seasons. That's something they really badly needed. So here the 49ers were not expecting to get any offers at all, because Trey Lance doesn't have a clear path to play with the Cowboys either. He's in a very similar situation with Dallas as he is with the 49ers. There's no clear on-field practice path for him. It's a very developmental situation for him in Dallas as well. That was the situation around most of the league. So the 49ers didn't expect anything higher than the 7th, 6th, maybe even a 6th round pick. Even that, might have been considered more than they were expecting. So here Dallas sent a 4, and they're also willing to absorb all of Trey Lance's salary. So in a vacuum, and that's how you have to analyze this, because in the chaos of the NFL, in the chaos of business, you can't think about the situation 2 years ago. You have to think about where you are now. And where the 49ers are now, they're 2 injuries removed and a Brock Purdy emergence removed from when Trey Lance joined this team in 2021. And where they are now, they profited from this trade. Now, it's going to be impossible to judge this, just as it was impossible to judge what kind of player Trey Lance might be. The 49ers just didn't have the resources to find out who he was going to be, because Brock Purdy is their QB1 now, and Sam Darnold beat him out for QB2. Time is a resource. Practice time is a resource. Playing time is a resource. 49ers don't have that for Trey Lance, and that's not through really any fault of anybody in particular. Injuries caused this to happen. The injury in 2021 and 2022, and the emergence of Brock Purdy caused it to happen. So, if there's one person who can be blamed for the fact that Trey Lance no longer had an opportunity in San Francisco, it's Brock Purdy. I talked about throwing darts at a wall. That's what the draft is. The 49ers they were very close to the wall. They were very close to the dartboard with the 1st round pick for Trey Lance. They might have missed. We don't know if they hit or missed, really, because Trey Lance got hurt twice and his development never happened. The reason that the 49ers can't follow up on that is because there's no more room to play Trey Lance, because Brock Purdy's better. Any NFL team is going to play the better quarterback who emerged while he was hurt. Anyway, a year after the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, they moved further away from the wall. There's the dartboard right behind me. They threw a much lower percentage dart throw at that wall, and they might have hit a bullseye with Brock Purdy. And in hitting the bullseye with Brock Purdy, Trey Lance was no longer QB1. And then Sam Darnold came in because the 49ers needed quarterback depth, and Sam Darnold was better than Trey this offseason, so Trey was no longer QB2, and the rest was history. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are going to try to find out the good news, materialize the good news with Trey Lance that the 49ers never had a chance to materialize. But we don't know if that's going to be good news with Trey Lance, right? Again, he's eminently raw, 102 career throws. 49ers just didn't have the capacity to develop him, because they have Purdy, they have Darnold behind Purdy. They're no longer tailoring their offense. They no longer tailored it this offseason to Trey Lance. They did that in 2021 to an extent, and they did that here in 2000, and they did it in 2022 fully, but then Trey Lance got hurt. So sometimes football just happens. And, these situations, fans get very, very emotional. I get it. The Cowboys are involved now. The Trey Lance discussion was a lightning rod for the 49ers because they invested so much in him. But I just talked on KMBR about this, and I think this big picture take is really, really necessary. They asked me on KMBR, what can the 49ers or what can any other team learn from what transpired? Because it was such an unusual situation. And what did the 49ers do wrong? Well, what the 49ers did in 2021 is they tried to thread the needle. They tried to have their cake and eat it too. By that I mean they knew they had a Super Bowl caliber roster, but they also wanted to set themselves up for the future with a quarterback on an affordable rookie contract, because they decided that after 2020 they could no longer afford the big contract of Jimmy Garoppolo. So in trying to have their cake and eat it too, they ran a dual pathway system. Parallel paths, I guess you could say. It was like the Warriors with James Wiseman. And everything would have had to gone right, or mostly right, for the dual track system to work. The 49ers had a concrete plan for Trey Lance. In 2021, he was going to get package play behind Jimmy Garoppolo. In 2022, he was going to emerge as the starter, and the 49ers were going to rely on the entire roster to lift him up. A rising tide lifts all boats, including the Trey Lance boat. That was the hope in 2021. But unfortunately for the 49ers, he got hurt twice. He got hurt in 2021, and he got hurt in 2022. So the grand plan that they had to thread the needle with Trey Lance on that dual path system, that dual path track, was derailed by those two injuries. The development that they wanted to thread the needle with, the needle just completely missed the mark. So where the 49ers went wrong, this was my answer to the question, was they probably miscalculated in 2021. The risk reward, right? The threading of the needle was something that would have, in theory, worked, but in practice, there were too many potential pitfalls. That all is framed, though, by the fact that the 49ers, despite the fact that this didn't work out for them, still have a very strong roster. Most other teams, probably any other team, if they made this big of an investment that just completely blew up, would implode. But the 49ers still have a really strong roster, and that's because they've had so much draft success in the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th round, right? They've been able to overcome some of their big swings and misses in the earlier rounds with how well they've drafted later on. And that's a testament to the scouting department and the coaching staff working together. That's all been well documented, how the 49ers played the comp pick formula, all that good stuff. Now they picked up another 4th round pick with which to make hay. So perhaps that risk reward analysis that they made in 2021 with Trey Lance, when everybody assumed that if this blows up in their face, they're in big trouble. Perhaps the 49ers took that big of a swing in 2021 because they knew how well fortified their roster was throughout all their other processes. They could afford to take that big of a swing. So they didn't just sit on their hands. They made a massive swing in 2021 to try to get their Mahomes-type quarterback, their guy that they can develop moldable clay at a rookie deal, at a bargain. That could keep their roster sustainable. They made a massive swing. It obviously didn't pay out. It didn't pay off. The injuries are the primary culprit to blame right now. But regardless of what's to blame, it didn't pay off. Yet the 49ers are still sitting here in a good position. And that's the big picture, and that's the big takeaway. I think the big takeaway should be focused on how the 49ers insulated themselves to be able to absorb what happened. And Trey Lance is now a Cowboy. They're moving forward in that regard. The big lesson is only thread the needle, or only try to thread the needle, if you are ready for it to blow up in your face. And the 49ers have obviously been ready for it to blow up in their face, because even that explosion has really not knocked them off balance. They've got Brock Purdy, and he's ready to play here against the Chargers in the final preseason game in just a few minutes. We'll talk to you after the game.